If you want to make a tremendous amount of wealth, then you have to do three things. One, live simply, be yourself, and optimize your performance. I'm Justin Hitt with Sustainable Wealth Secrets, and those are the three things that we're going to talk about right now. Now, you guys know that I do these podcasts. I just get them knocked out. I'm not really trying to impress you with my, Devonish good looks. I'm not trying to dress up a certain way to present a persona. I'm really authentic. I'm being myself because that's what you're going to get when you hire me as a consultant or a coach or to hire me to work on a project for you. So the key thing that I do is that as I'm producing content to solve problems for clients and answering questions that you have, I actually just put it all in a newsletter. So if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're an attorney, if you are a professional with subject matter expertise, it's very often that you answer the same questions over and over. If you take notes, such as a journal, and I don't see my journal sitting right here, but usually my journal's within arm's length. I'll take notes in the journal. I'll be able to come up with a library of ideas and topics that are useful. Now, I'm going to share with you how that works because what it gives me is tools that I can syndicate. So I just recorded a podcast for one of my newsletters that talks about marketing and communications. And one of the things that I explain there is that I'm building content based on the questions that my audience asks. So rather than writing a frequently asked questions, I do it a little bit more interactively. I do it with education. I try to be entertaining and interesting, but ultimately I want to give you like a takeaway or two that you can implement right away. So I do that in a way that's authentic for who I am. I'm not trying to impress you or to put on a face. I'm not fronting or anything like that. This is how I am in person when we're interacting with each other in person. When you've hired me for a consultation, you've hired me for coaching, you've hired me to go over a plan or do a project, this is what you get. If you don't like it, then you unsubscribe and we're all the better for it. But everything I do is outlined, documented, libraried, cataloged. It's researched. It's past experience. It's developed into an artifact so that not only what I am in person and in my mind, I am also on paper that way. And that gives me something valuable that helps you build wealth. So as a subject matter expert or someone who's got to do active income, maybe you're getting paid $300,000 a year to be a top programmer, and you know for a fact that you're working 24 hours a day sometimes, there are certain things that you're doing that can be artifact. And so the model for a software developer is what is it that you do that's valuable to an organization that can be put into a library so that you can easily reference it when you need it. So part of that might be is the day-to-day routine and activities that you do to perform your job. You can create procedures, you can create checklists, and then ultimately each time you sit down to do a certain job, you're going to do it more consistently, you're going to do it more regularly. You can maintain an engineering notebook where you're noting your observations, you're noting the what works and what doesn't, and then you're ultimately going over and reviewing those materials from time to time. If you're an investor, such as a broker or a stock investor, you might keep libraries of your observations of the marketplace as well as your rationale for making certain types of investment decisions, and then turn that into a newsletter for your clients, because maybe the information you can't publicly share it, but you can share it with your private clients as a value add for them investing in your services. So not only do you have the investment gains that you produce as an investor, but you also have the value that you deliver to them as a newsletter, and you can put a price on that, and maybe it's $900 value a year. So not only are they getting the investment returns, but they're getting a better understanding about why you're doing things and what is happening in the marketplace so that they can prepare. This is going to give you a better understanding of your customer. It's going to help you speak more intelligently about what it is that you're doing for your customer and ultimately deliver that next level of value. Again, you don't have to be someone special. You don't have to have certain camera equipment. You don't have to have a certain, office setup. I do recommend that if you're if you're a lawyer or a professional, you could just set up a little side corner of a room as a studio, or set up a sound booth, and you can do your recordings that way. If you don't want to do these recordings, because there are challenges if you're doing recordings or you're doing these artifacts, is that once you've written it in an engineering notebook, you've got to extract it and turn it into articles and stuff. I do find that if you can get interviewed, that's very credible. But why are we doing these things? So we talk about here turning your income into net worth. Well, these things create artifacts that prove your credibility even when you're not there individually. So in my book, Establishing Instant Credibility, which will be a link below, we talk about creating artifacts that can present you when you're not around. So for example, this audio recording 100 years from now, whether it's on YouTube or some other platform, whether it's on my website or someone else's website, presents my ideas and concepts for helping you turn income into wealth, and shows you a simple model that you can be yourself, that you can connect with an audience, and that you can syndicate your value by using simple strategies. You'll get enough information in this video to actually do what I'm talking about. You can simply pick up your phone, talk to your phone, do a presentation, and then send it to your private clients. Now, I'm not talking about you becoming a YouTube creator. I'm not talking about you running a podcast or a newsletter. The only reason I do the podcast and the newsletter is because I'm actually in the publishing business. So I've published my own books. I've published other people's books. I've published professional papers and reports. So I built a business around that. You as an individual professional might just use these things to promote your business. You might use these things to position yourself in a marketplace. So even if you're being interviewed on the local morning show because you're an estate attorney and you're sharing ideas and concepts how older Americans can prepare for the uncertainty of the economy, and you're talking about how inflation is impacting their savings, and you provide 3 or 4 tips of what to look for, the key ideas and concepts that they're going to look at their portfolio, now you have a segment, and you can get a service to give you that segment. You don't have to know how to edit video. You don't have to be a creator. You're just be who you are, the expert that you are, and then even if you work for another corporation. Now, here's the challenge with working for a corporation. There could be a non-disclosure. There could be a non-compete agreement. And so if you're speaking at conferences about the current topic or the current subject matter in which you're doing research, for example, that's a no-no. Don't do that. However, you could speak at a conference. So let's say you're an engineer and you speak at a conference on the basics of engineering and why engineering is a exciting and valuable career, and your audience is not your typical person who hires you, but it is a youth group, for example. It could be a freshman in college. It could be speaking at the Google campus, and the presentation's recorded, and you're speaking about entry-level information and then your own experiences, not specific to products. So you might say, hey, today we're going to talk about the value of engineering. I'm a certain type of engineer. I've got this kind of experience. I've worked for these big name companies, and here's how I did it. And then you just talk about the career aspirations, what subjects are important, all the foundation of what you do. When a hiring manager sees that, they see someone who's able to mentor people, who's able to get more executive level skills or has more executive level skills rather than somebody who just does engineering. As I've talked about, one of our sustainable wealth secrets is not doing a thing as much as organizing the people who do a thing. That pays more. So you can talk about a thing that pays near nothing. You can do a thing that pays pretty well. Or you could organize a team to do things, whether it's through a corporation or you're an executive role, and that pays a lot. So people don't understand how much you know until you create these artifacts to demonstrate. So if all you're doing is heads down working, it's harder to convert income into net worth because you don't have any residual or passive opportunities. So again, be somebody in a market. It's okay to have opinions. You can be authentically who you are, But ultimately, you want to document what you've done, the lessons you've learned, the observations you've had, and then find ways using media to reach a larger audience. Again, when I work with people, there are times where you're doing, maybe you're doing a very cutting edge technology research, and you're a little concerned that if you mention what you're actually doing at work today, that your company's going to sue you. Well, you don't talk about that. You talk about what you did when you first got started. You talk about things that you know are common to the environment. So I work in risk management, and I actually talk about anti-money laundering on this channel. I've talked about compromise or how political funding works, so that you can be aware of that. These are topics that I might actively work with a client to help solve for, but I don't tell you the specifics of their environment. In fact, I very often caveat that these are hypothetical situations because I also have input from subscribers. And so if I'm on the risk and compliance message board on LinkedIn and I expand on a topic there based on both my practical experience and expertise, I can present that to that same audience without anyone in that audience saying, oh my gosh, he just leaked a secret. Well, we have to have some ethics here. But again, now that audience sees that I understand the concepts, I can communicate the concepts, and that ultimately I'm a valuable player in that market. And then what tends to happen is recruiters will contact me. So what we're doing here is we're giving you a little bit more context and body so that you're an individual in the marketplace rather than a commodity. We're building on your past experiences rather than just trying to cut it out here. So the resume, if the resume is the only thing you're using to advance your income opportunities, then you're not well positioned, because everybody's got a resume. Not everybody has a book or a podcast or a channel or has been interviewed on different channels, and there's different ways of doing it depending on your personality and needs. But even if you are running a corporation, and this is probably the most tangible example for my senior level executives and my folks that are in high level corporations, is that even if you're just doing these presentations internally, you can set up a separate camera, edit out all the proprietary stuff, or have the company record it and put it in front of the rest of your staff. So if you work for a large Fortune 100, you could have 250,000 people in the company, and then actually partner with the company to create a residual product. So, Lee Iacocca, a lot of these big executives have books. The books were sanctioned and written and produced by the company they worked for, but they gained the credibility. So you can do it that way as well. There's no shortage of how you can do these things. You just have to do something. The key concept is who you are, what you've done, your experiences have value in the marketplace, but also promote who you are, what you do, and your value in the marketplace. Do you see how this works? We're recycling. So this podcast could end up being a tutorial later. It could end up being a special report. It could be something that I send to one individual who is a recruiter who could hire me and wants to know how I help teams grow, or how I help syndicate the expertise of individuals, or maybe it's even a consulting client. But I didn't create this just to be a podcast. I created it to be part of an ecosystem that generates income, that generates residual value and passive income, because it's an artifact, it's an asset that cash flows, and it's something that I can promote for years to come. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be done. But I hope you understand the concept. There are things that you're doing every day. There are lessons that you learn and test with experience that other people will not be able to duplicate, but could benefit with if they heard the story, if they understood the key concepts, if they saw the mistakes to avoid. Now, whether you're a senior level executive under some non-disclosure agreement or some, Loctite agreement, you can still present in the marketplace using these tangential elements. Speak to a younger audience. Speak to your peers. Speak to people who are inside your own corporation. And then all these things together present celebrity proof. It's not about being a creator or being an influencer. It's about demonstrating value without the active engagement or interaction. Okay, because time is money. Money is time. Money is resources. If you're having to present the same presentation more than once or learn the same lesson more than once, then you've got that's extra waste in the when I optimize business processes, I'm always looking for places where maybe two parts of the company are doing the same thing and we can combine them, and now we've still doing the same work, but we're doing it more efficiently. Or we might want to make something more effective by doing it with an outside firm rather than having an inside firm do it, or having a specialist do it rather than a generalist. But that's what we're talking about here. Now, what will happen in this situation is you will increase your income, which is very useful. You might increase your expenses a little bit, but depending on how you structure this, and it's a topic for another program, you may structure this in a certain way that actually lowers your taxes, and even though you have an expenditure, doesn't increase your overall expenses. But you're also going to start creating your residual value in a marketplace. You'll be able to market yourself without having to physically interact, but you'll also be able to extend your reach in a way that opens doors. It may even create passive income, depending on licensing or the creation of intellectual property, because some of this could be a patent inside of an organization where you own, you've got a royalty rights to a patent. A lot of times this happens with professors in universities. It happens with methods and approaches, but ultimately you're going to increase your income, but because you haven't significantly increased your costs, you're going to increase your free net cash flow, and then that free net cash flow is invested in additional assets of cash flow, some of which may be intellectual property, some of which may extend your subject matter expertise, some of it may position you in the marketplace, but all of it builds sustainable wealth. I'm Justin Hitt with Sustainable Wealth Secrets. And obviously, I'm sharing these things with you. They're not so much secrets anymore, but if you're not implementing them, then they are not serving you. So if you found something valuable in what I've shared here today, and you have either additional questions or you want to work personally with me on a plan, see, I don't willy-nilly just answer questions. I'll help you develop a plan so that you can turn your expertise into residual and passive income, then you're in the right place. Visit www.sustainablewealthsecrets.com. Go to the contact page and ask your questions. I also have a free newsletter as well as a membership site where I talk about more concepts that transform your income into wealth. Once you understand these things and you start implementing them, you'll see how they snowball, how they increase value, how they syndicate, how they connect, how they put you in a position where it's only natural that your wealth increases. That's what we do for you here at Sustainable Wealth Secrets. Thanks for listening, and I'm interested in hearing your story and hearing about the challenges and helping you overcome those challenges.